It's so good to be back in Vietnam. It's really, really good to be back in Vietnam. I'm in Saigon, and y'all should know, well, you shouldn't know, but Saigon is a huge city. Millions of people live here. Saigon is bigger than Singapore. So, yeah, Saigon is actually bigger than Singapore. I didn't find that out until about a month or two ago. But anyway, let me turn the camera around. I'm at the park, and I just want to show y'all what life is like a little bit in Vietnam. So I'm at a park. It's my first time being in this park. And you see, there's so many people out here. It's just a regular day, right? Excuse me. But there are so many people out here enjoying the park. And you can see some of their facilities at this park. Right? It's kind of nice. You know, I like it. Um, I like I don't like very developed urban areas and all of that. I like more of, so you see they have everything. They got really stuff you can work out with. That's my thing right there. I'm going to do pull-ups. They have monkey bars and they have couple pull-up bars. I saw some free weights too, y'all. So, but, you know, I like, I like basic things like this, you know. Come out. It's so important to get out in nature. You know, I always talk about returning to the Most High. A lot of that has to do with getting back into nature, right? As simple as that sound. But when you think about it, isn't that what you would expect? You would expect returning to the Most High to be simple, easy, intuitive, nothing complicated. And how do I know that? Because nothing in nature is complicated, right? It just comes, right? You're pre-programmed for it. You don't have to think about it. Returning to nature is not something you have to think about, but it's something that you have been, well, not just you, but everybody, especially in the West, well, not everybody, but in the West, we have been conditioned to be afraid of nature. Not stopping to think about you were conditioned to be afraid of nature so that they can sell you products, i.e. drugs, medicines, elixirs, right? Synthetic drugs, drinks, and food because you're afraid of nature, which is the place where you come from. Now look, y'all, they playing with slippers and no shoes. So for those of you who think you need shoes to play sports, you don't. Being in Southeast Asia, I've seen people play basketball. They're playing soccer right now, no shoes. Not because they're poor, but they choose not to wear them, right? Or they'll wear slippers, okay? So there's another thing about being in Southeast Asia. I've come to learn from seeing that all of the food hygiene things that we are accustomed to, like for example, don't leave fish out, right? Don't cook food and then leave it out because it'll spoil. That's just not true. I've seen people have raw meat, even pork. They have raw meat, right? And they still cook it. They sell it and they cook. And I've never walked by and the meat stinks or it's infested. So that meat needs to be refrigerated all day. That's just not true. I've seen it here in Southeast Asia. You know, when you go to these public markets and they're selling meat, yeah, they have it out and it doesn't spoil. So I just thought that was interesting. But anyway, you can do your own compare and contrast. For me, I like this. But I like all nature, right? So y'all think about this. Within the last few months, I've shown you all in my videos, I've done park walks in India, right? I've done park walks in India. So if y'all want to see what those parks look like, watch the videos. I've done park walks in Thailand, and now I'm in Vietnam, Saigon, a park walk, right? See, they have the things for children, the equipment for children, and everybody seems to be having a good time, you know. Yeah. But returning to nature, that's a large part of returning to the Most High, because see, the spell is so heavy that you're on in the West, the Christianity spell, or even just religion spell. That's so heavy. Y'all so burdened with guilt, uncertainty, and fear that you really, really don't have time to think about self. I'm talking about self as in who you are, the inner man or woman, or the inner child. You get lost and overly concerned or preoccupied with day-to-day life, and you never come to find out who you are. Okay? Now that's the truth. But when you come in nature and you're silent and you get to hear the crickets, the birds, the insects, put your feet in the grass, right? And you get silent and you get relaxed, you replug yourself back into the universe. Literally, you replug. And it's in that silence, it's in the silence that you can get resolution to any type of problems, worries, or stresses that are on you. It's simply in the silence. So when you're silent and you're able to get that worry and stress off of you, you come more in touch with yourself. See what I mean? You become more in touch with yourself. And then you begin to make better decisions, and you can become less reliant on some external deity. Okay? You become less reliant on an external deity because you begin to notice that the stress relief and the solutions that you were seeking, you got them when you went into the woods or you went into the park, right? You didn't get them sitting up in the church or praying, right? And you start to realize these things yourself. So when you start to get peace, serenity, and getting the things that you want, problems resolved, all of these type of things, of course you're going to repeat it, right? You're going to do it again and again. This is why meditation has become so popular over the past 30 years, right? Everybody talks about meditating. Everybody talks about visualization because the results are evident, okay? The results are evident. So when you go into nature, it is therapeutic, physically therapeutic, and mentally therapeutic. Even, let's say you're in a bad relationship, right? You can't stand your husband or your wife, right? Or your children stressing you out. Or they can't stand you, but you love them. Whatever the case might be. When you go into nature, you can decompress, collect yourself, be with you, and appreciate you. Actually, you know, when you stay in a stressful relationship, a relationship that's not serving you, that's right, serving you. A relationship should serve you. Otherwise, what's the point? You're the servant, but you're not getting served. So that's not a good situation long term, right? But people who stay in that situation are usually doing so maybe because it's the children, right? They don't want to leave their children. Things like that, right? But let's say if there's no children involved, or they're afraid. Let's say they're afraid to leave. Say they have children, they don't want to leave their children, right? And on top of that, they're afraid to leave, right? Maybe they're afraid because of money, fear of violence, intimidation. Who knows what goes on in these toxic relationships, right? All of that kind of stuff. But let's take out the children. Let's say there's no children involved. People who stay in toxic relationships are usually doing it because they're acting out a subconscious script that they were programmed with by their parents or whoever raised them, right? They were programmed to take abuse, right? So what do I mean by that? Well, they learned strategies when they were children. They were abused verbally, physically, when they were children, and then they learned strategies that would help them stay safe, right? That would help them feel secure. And they learn these strategies at a very young age. The problem is that when you get older, those strategies do not continue to work, right? They don't continue to work. But we're not aware of these unconscious programs. So we get into a relationship. Usually it's going to be with somebody whose personality is like your primary caregiver, the person who abused you. So you go into another abusive relationship. The only thing that has changed is the person's face and their name, right? Maybe the details have changed, but overall the behavior is still the same. So the relationship changed, but the personality, the abuse is still there, right? And it'll be like that. It'll be like that until you become aware of it, right? Once you become aware of it, then you can start making decisions as to whether or not you want to change who you are, because unfortunately the problem, the solution to the problem resides within you. And well, I guess I should say fortunately, but the unfortunate part is to come to the realization that this whole thing has been in your control all the time, right? You've been programmed to be in these negative relationships, right? And so you just go from one relationship to the next, and they have the same type of abusive behavior. The face has changed, the name has changed, but the abuse has stayed the same. So it's not that all men or all women are like the ones you have been attracting and meeting. No, that's not the case. The problem is with your personality, right? Those coping strategies that you learn attract those type of abusive personalities, right? And then not only that, but there are certain types of toxic behavior that someone who doesn't have the same programming as you, when a person does that toxic behavior, their alarms go off. And they say, let me get the heck away from this person. And they run the other way. But you don't do that, right? Because you don't even recognize it. You have no alarm system because you grew up with that. So that's your normal. But anyway, that's how it goes. But once you become aware of it, then you can become, you're able to do something about it, right? So, and then that awareness comes in what? It comes in silence. Comes in the silence. So let's drill down deeper with silence. So silence is more than just being quiet. Silence is more than just being quiet. So for example, I'm sitting in my car and I turn off the radio, or I turn off the music, Okay, and I'm not talking. That's silence, right? But there's a different type of silence. I talked about this, I think, in the last video. There's a different type of silence that's more profound, more curative, more creative. And so what is that? So you're sitting down, there's no noise around you. There's no environmental stimuli. There's no noise. That's silence, right? However, there's still thoughts in your mind, right? You still have thoughts in your mind. The thoughts always come, one thought after another, right? Now, that pattern of thought, or that thought pattern, is repetition. Most people are thinking and feeling the same thoughts and feelings all day long. Literally all day long. That's why you keep getting the same experiences in life, because your thoughts are the same, right? Why are they the same? Because you've done it so long. You've done it so long, right? You haven't grown. You haven't fed your mind with more information that would cause you to think about other things. You haven't met other people to give you other things to think about and to show you more about life. You've been in a narrow space too long, right? So let's get back to it. So you get one thought, let's call it thought A, right? Which is, I want to go make a cup of coffee, or I want some coffee. And then there's a second thought that comes, which is, I wonder what my daughter is doing. I wonder what my son is doing. Where's my wife? Where's my husband? That's the second thought. All right. But between thought A, I want a cup of coffee, and thought B, where's my son or my daughter, my husband, my wife? I wonder what they're doing. Between those two thoughts, there's silence, right? There's silence. Okay? Between the thoughts, there's silence, there's nothing. All right? And then that nothing, that gap, that space is creative. That space is genius. That space is curative. That space is a space that you want to be in as often as possible. Right there in that gap, in that silence between the thoughts. All right? Don't believe me? Try it yourself. Okay? And the more you sit in silence, dealing with yourself, for a lot of you, probably most of you, it may be unbearable. It may be completely unbearable. However, once you recognize that it feels unbearable because you're uncomfortable being with yourself, right? Then you come to the realization that if you're uncomfortable with being with you, how can you expect somebody else to be comfortable being with you, and you're not comfortable with being with you in the first place, right? That's real. That's the real thing, y'all. Okay, so if you find yourself always having to listen to music, always having to watch TV, always having to be doing something, it might be an indication that you are not comfortable with yourself, or maybe you don't even like yourself, all right? Or maybe you got some guilt thing. Well, let me show y'all this game. This game is pretty amazing to me that they can do this. Okay, maybe you don't like yourself, or you have some guilt happening. Maybe you have some guilt happening, right? You don't like yourself. So you always have to do things to distract yourself, okay, from being who you are. All right? So when you sit in silence and you begin to become conscious of your thoughts, what's happening is that what? Now that you're conscious of them, you know they're present, and you can begin to what? Think about them at the intellectual level, consciously. You might say, well, you know what? This is totally unreasonable. it's foolish for me to think that, right? Or you might say, you know what, that happened 20 years ago, and I'm still hooked on it. Let me let this thing go. I'm making a fool out of myself, or I'm hurting myself with this, right? So you become aware of what your thoughts are, what your dominating thoughts are. Dominating meaning that the things that you think about most, the things that you think about most of the time, right? So once you become aware of these thoughts and you practice this, right? Not a one-time thing, not a two-time thing, but a practice. Once you begin to practice this stuff, you become aware. And you are able to, in that awareness, you're able to make decisions, okay? Decisions that ultimately are in your best interest. You become what? You become the designer and engineer of your own life. That's right. The designer and engineer of your own life. You're no longer acting out a program that you had nothing to do with, that you were forced into. As a matter of survival. The little girl looked at me like, who the heck is this guy? Yeah, so you did, so that all that programming, by the time you were 7, you know, who knows, before you were 7, you're pre-programmed, okay, to do certain things, behave a certain way, to keep yourself safe. Right? But now, in the silence, you engineer the new man or the new woman that you want to be. You choose for yourself. Okay? So that's the wonderful thing about this. When you practice this, it's you choosing for yourself. And I know this from experience, y'all. I'm telling you about my own experiences, okay? I'm telling about my own experiences, all right? It really, really works. And even if you have things that can crush most people, you've been through things or you're experiencing something right now that will crush the average person. This simple technique, you wouldn't even call it a technique. You just return to nature. Simple. Return to nature, and it can resolve it. Doesn't cost you anything but the energy and effort to walk or drive to the park. That's all it costs. Everything that the Most High provides is free. Everything. Don't cost you nothing to breathe air. Don't cost you anything to breathe water, right? Doesn't cost you anything to go out and pick a plant, make some tea, pick some vegetables in the garden or at the forest. Doesn't cost anything. Doesn't cost anything, right? And nobody can tell you not to do it, right? And why is it that nobody can tell you not to do it? Because if you are a Moor, Genesis chapter 2, you're the rightful heir. All of it belongs to you, right? All of it belongs to you, and you do what you want to do, right? That's your sovereignty, okay? You do what you want to do, and nobody can tell you anything. And everybody knows that they can't tell you anything because we're all built that way, right? We're all built. Nobody has to tell you that. But what has happened is that we had our ancestors who were greedy, and they wanted people to work for them, right? They wanted to sit back and do nothing and live large and rule over people, all right? And so everybody knows what they did, and now we have these hybrids. Well, even before then, we had the hybrids, right? The Nephilim, and then the Raphaim. And then what else, y'all? What else? What else? The Paleolith. That's right, the Paleolith. The Paleolith. Okay? So what is the Paleolith? This is the troglodyte nigger, right? Paleolith is the troglodyte nigger, often referred to as the Neanderthal. And then, of course, those three hybrids can have mixed, all right? They can have mixed. Well, the Raphaim are supposed to be the offspring of the Nephilim, okay? So the Nephilim slash Raphaim could have mixed with the Neanderthal, or what we call the Paleolithic, and also natural men, also natural people, right? So anyway, you have that mixture, and you have these people who are obsessed. Well, I won't even call them people. You have these creatures who are obsessed with dominating, ruling, and having everyone in subjection to them. Genesis chapter 1, right? Genesis chapter 1. All right? But other than that, so now you see the conflict. You can see the conflict, right? The conflict between nature or natural man and the hybrid. The hybrid wants everything to be hybrid. Everything to be unnatural, made up. Hence you see what? Synthetic products, synthetic medicines, all of these hybrid things. Everything is a hybrid, all right? And you see that natural man suffers because it's not good for our bodies, right? All of these hybrid types of things. Y'all heard Dr. CB talking about how the hybrid plants make you acidic and cause illness, right? So this is why. So we fell, okay? We fell. The natural people fell, and now we're being dominated by hybrids, okay? Oannes, Dogon, mermaid, right? So all of these things, that's what's really happening. So all we need to do is return to nature, y'all. Return to nature. Return to nature. You already know when you're doing something wrong to somebody. You already know. Just stop doing it. That's called do no harm. Do no harm. In human relations, in family, in commerce, do no harm. Don't injure anybody. See, that's very simple, right? You can apply that to everything. If I do this, am I going to harm this person? If the answer is yes, don't do it. There is no moral, ethical argument, right? There is none. That takes you outside of natural law. This morality, ethics, that's religion. That's religion to get you into what? Into an abstract state of mind. Get your imagination working. Okay? Get your imagination working, and then all of a sudden, guess what? You figured out a way to justify, to rationalize harming somebody. Right? There you go. Don't harm anybody. So let me give you an example. Let's say you agreed to buy a cup of coffee and it costs 10 cents. All right. So they give you a cup of coffee, but you don't like it. So you say, I'm not paying for it. I ain't gonna pay. This is a terrible cup of coffee. Are you harming someone? In that simple example, are you harming someone by not paying? Okay? You don't need to know a whole bunch of details to know that you're harming them, right? Because they never promised you it was going to be a good cup of coffee, and two, they spent their money or their fiat to buy it. They have a family to feed, right? Or themselves to take care of. All right? And if you look at it even more than that, If everybody in the community starts to say, well, I ain't paying you because whatever reason, the temperature ain't right, I'm not paying you. You see how that can go sideways for a whole nation really, really fast? You're harming people. Not only are you harming them, but you're harming the community and the nation. Some behavior is just unacceptable. It's just harmful, right? Maybe it's harmful to the psyche. Maybe it's harmful to that person's psyche, right? Maybe it's not going to harm them financially, but maybe it's going to harm how they feel about themselves, or any harm is harm. You need to go into a big deal. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just look up the word harm. Don't harm anybody, right? So everything that you do with that principle in mind, not to harm anyone, will lead to what? Observance of natural law, observance of the Most High's commandments. You can look at the 10 Commandments, Exodus chapter 20, right? At their essence, their natural law. Why? When you look at them, the essence of all of them is do no harm. Don't harm anybody, right? When you steal, that's harming. Okay? That's what it is. Easy, right? Easy. Everything that's natural is easy. Anyway, y'all, I hope this is helpful. If you have any decisions to make, do your best to return to the Most High, return to nature, follow His laws. Follow the Most High's laws, right? When we deal with human relations, the laws have to do with do no harm. That's all you have to do. So our Moorish family from the other nations of Moors, they say love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, right? It's the same concept. Do no harm, right? So if you deal with people based upon love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, that's also do no harm. So we are the natural people sprung from the soil, all right? We are sprung from the soil. So return to nature from the place which you come from. I'm Dr. Yasapa from Zion Law School. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to talk to y'all. Oh, I didn't realize the camera was up in at my face like that. Sorry about that. Let me turn it the other way. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to talk to y'all. I'm going to bounce before it gets too dark. I don't want to have to take a taxi home because I would definitely be lost. So I need to find my way back home. If y'all like the way I teach, if you like the subject matter, if you want more astrotheology, if you want more natural law, if you want more of the esoteric gospels, consider becoming a regular contributor. My Cash App is in the description area of this video. Also my PayPal. The Cash App is $, Dr. Yasapa, $, YASAPA. Cash App, PayPal is paypal.me/Zion Law School. All right. You can also make purchases of any of the many books that I've written and published. The books are in the description area of the video. All right. These are books on Ancient Ibaryath, our language. Okay. The original language that the Hebrew scriptures were written in. All right. So I can't stress enough how important it is to learn the Ancient Ibaryath, and not to ignore it because of the flashiness of the astrotheology, right? We need to know how to read and look at these documents to get the meaning for ourselves and not be dependent upon those people who have enslaved us and oppress us to this day and kill us, and they do everything else, right? All right, so that should be common sense. It's an investment. All right, it's an investment. The books are not free. All right, you have to invest in yourself. Okay, the same way I had to invest myself into producing them, and everybody else who creates anything have to invest in it, right? You just have to invest in it, okay? But it's for your improvement. It's for your improvement. All right. Anyway, y'all, you're welcome to come to class for free on Saturday. Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The link is in the description area of this video. All right, make sure you read the video description, okay? Make sure you read the description for the Saturday class. All right, so you got to register, and then once you register, you'll get an email, and in the email, that'll give you the link to enter into the classroom. All right, and we are doing Deuteronomy chapter 28, a word for word breakdown. So every word we break it down. All right, every word we break it down in its grammar, part of speech, etymology, and what it means in the context. All right, of the verse. All right, y'all. I'll see y'all Saturday.